In this video, we're going to be looking at another part 2 task card for the IELTS speaking test. Now, we've looked at plenty of these before, but this is a new one that I think would be interesting to have a look at. What we're going to do in this video is think about the planning stage to give our full answer. In the next video that I do, I'll put up the full answer to the task card. But for now, we're just thinking about how we're going to plan our answer for this specific task card. So let's have a look at the task card that I've chosen. Here it is, and you can see it's asking us to describe a luxury item that we would like to own in the future. Now, for some people, this might be a little bit of a difficult task card. For me in particular, this is quite difficult because, well, I haven't really thought much about luxury items I would like to own in the future. I don't have much interest in buying these kinds of things, so it would be a little bit tough for me if I got this task card in the test and I hadn't prepared a bit for it. So that's why we're thinking about it now. So you can think about, well, what your answer would be to a task like this. For me, this kind of task, like I said, is pretty challenging, but I can think of something that if I imagine hard enough, I would quite like to have if I was really, really rich. So what we'll do is go through the planning stage, and some of you might remember that, of course, in the planning stage, we're just going to make some short, simple notes that we can follow when we're giving our full answer, just so we don't forget some of our key ideas and maybe key vocabulary that we want to include in our answer. And that's what we'll do. We'll write down some key ideas first, one for each of the cues that they give you on the task card. And then, of course, for each of those ideas, we'll think of maybe some vocabulary that we want to use to impress the examiner a bit. So if we have a look at that task card there, you can see, of course, we've looked at the first line, which you've got to understand fully before you start planning. And then we've got those 4 cues. Well, what item you would like to own, so pretty simple. What this item looks like, so a simple description of this item, and why you would like to own this item, so giving reasons for wanting to have whatever the item is, and also explain whether you think you will ever own this item. And of course, well, for me, like I said to you, I don't think this is something I'm going to own, and you'll see why in a minute. Basically, the thing that I've chosen to talk about is a super or mega yacht. Now, this is basically a very, very big, luxurious boat. And you'll see that, the only people that own these kind of things are billionaires, people who can afford an extremely large amount of money to buy one of these mega yachts. So the first thing I would write down in my notes is that item I would like to own, a super or mega yacht. And I'll write that down. I think the difference between a super yacht and a mega yacht is that a mega yacht is, well, bigger than a super yacht. I'm not that fussy between the two. If I could have either, I guess I would be happy. So that's the first main idea for that first cue. We've got that down there. And then we'll move on to the second cue, which is what the item looks like. Now, of course, everyone really knows what a big yacht looks like. And of course, when I go into detail on this, I'll describe a lot of the features of the yacht and what is on it. But of course, if I've got the key idea here, really, I'm just going to write down an adjective that is describing the size of this mega yacht. And I think the word humongous would be quite appropriate here. Now, this is just an adjective that is a synonym of words like massive, gigantic, and words like this that are describing something that is very, very big. And of course, these mega yachts are very, very big. Of course, I can go into more detail than this and use other words that we'll think about maybe when we're thinking about extra vocabulary to use when we're going into detail. But I've got the main idea down there so I don't lose focus. Then we can move on to the third cue, which is why you would like to own this item. Now, really here I can think of two main reasons. One is the freedom that it would give me. Of course, you can go anywhere you want, any of the time. You don't have to stay in one place if you don't want to. So it gives you complete freedom and also comfort. If you've seen any of these luxury yachts, you see that they are very comfortable to live on. It's almost like living in a 5-star hotel on water. So what I would do there is write down the two reasons, freedom and comfort. So I've got those two things in my notes. And of course, I will expand on that as much as I can when I'm speaking about it in the full answer. And that brings me to the final cue, which is explain whether you think you will ever own this item. And quite simply, I think I will never own this item. It's pretty much impossible. So quite simply, I'll write down the word never in my notes. And then, of course, I will explain that in more detail when I'm giving the full answer. So we've got the ideas there, the main ideas that we've thought of, and really this kind of thing is going to have to take, well, less than half your preparation time. Remember, we've only really got 1 minute preparation time when you're in the real test. And this is realistic. It's only a few words to write down. We could probably get that done in half of the time, which leaves us kind of 30 more seconds to write down a few more words and things that I want to use to impress the examiner. So we'll think about that next and write some of those kind of words, the vocabulary that I want to really make sure I don't forget to use when I'm speaking. So if we go back up to the first idea, which was basically saying what the item is, and of course I said it's a super or mega yacht. Now I can think of some words that maybe would be able to be used when I'm talking about this yacht. One thing I want to make clear really when I'm speaking is that this is a fantasy, right? I don't think it's particularly realistic, especially from, well, I've explained in the final point that I think I will never own something like this. And I think the verb form of the noun fantasy would be a good word to try and use here. The word fantasize. So that's one of the words I would write down to make sure I try to use it when I'm speaking. Also, I might try and adapt some of the words from the topic card. Now, of course, it says a luxury item. Now, I think it would be a good idea to maybe show, another form of the word luxury, which is luxurious. And I might say it's, well, the most luxurious item that I can possibly think of, and that's why I've chosen it. So writing down fantasize and most luxurious would remind me to mention those words to impress the examiner a bit. So those are the two kind of extra things that I'd write down there for that first idea. If we move on to the second idea, which was, well, what the item looks like and a full description of it. Now, of course, there's loads of things to talk about when we're describing a mega yacht. It's full of different kind of amenities and things that we can describe. Maybe first of all, I could think about describing the size in a bit more detail. So we can describe it as being over 80 meters long. And just to make sure I don't forget to say that, we'd write that down and also write down maybe one of the kind of facilities or amenities on the yacht that is quite impressive. And one thing I can think of is a helipad, a place for a helicopter to land on the yacht. So I'd write down just these two things: over 80 meters and helipad. And those would be the kind of words I don't want to forget to use. And of course, there'll be a lot more when I'm going into detail on that description. So if we move on to the third idea, which was, well, why we'd like to own it. And I've said, of course, there you can see for freedom and comfort. Now we want to think of some more interesting things to mention there that connect with those ideas. And I thought it would be interesting to use a phrase that is used by native speakers to describe the idea of going from place to place or island to island whenever you want to. And this would be the phrase island hopping. That would be the activity, to hop from one island to another island whenever you want to do so. And I'd write down those two words there, just so I don't forget to mention that, and also describe it in more detail. That brings us to the fourth and final idea, which was the fact that I said I would never be able to own this item, and I don't want to be honest, because I can think even if I had that kind of money, I would probably spend it on something else. But again, this is just a fantasy. And of course, we've got to choose to talk about something when the examiner gives us a topic card. You can't change the topic card, right? You've got to talk about what the examiner gives you. Now, I've said we don't think we'll ever own something like this, and the main reason is the cost. It's so expensive. As a teacher, I don't think it's going to be within my price range. So I'm just going to write down a word that could describe that cost that I think might impress the examiner, and that is the word astronomical. It means a very, very, very high cost. So astronomical cost would be the phrase that I'd write down there, so I don't forget to use it when I'm giving my full answer. So there you have it. We've got the ideas there, and we've also got some extra vocabulary that we can use when we're describing those ideas. Now, of course, in the next video, we'll be looking at the full answer. Now, the idea of me showing you this planning stage is so that you can think of how you might plan, what your ideas would be, and what your vocabulary would be. Of course, you can use my ideas and vocabulary as inspiration for your own, but before next week's video, maybe have a think about, well, what your answer would be. Would it be a mega yacht like my idea? Would it be something completely different? Again, one of the things about preparing for especially part 2 of the IELTS speaking test is building up your ideas for these kind of topic cards that come up in the test, so you don't get any kind of surprise, and that planning stage should be a lot quicker, and you shouldn't panic during the 1 minute that the examiner gives you to prepare. So hopefully this has been useful. If it has been useful to you, then do remember to click the like button. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any similar videos in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.